Welcome to Second Take. What a weekend it has been. There hasn't been a weekend like this. To be quite frank, there will never be another weekend like this. Not just for Namibia, but for Africa as a whole. Namibia laid to rest the late Dr. Shafiishuna Nujoma, the founding father of this nation. But as I said, it wasn't just Namibia who said goodbye. Dr. Sam Nujoma was the last founding father in all of Africa. He was the last one, the last guy who got things started and pushed his people and others into freedom, into independence. He was the last one. I mean, I know you get confused when you think of people like Museveni who've been in power for 40 years. Museveni was not the first. But really, Africa's mourning, Namibia's mourning. And guess what? We have the right to. Welcome to Second Take.
It all began with ink on paper, a small but powerful voice that reached the homes of Namibians, sharing their stories, their triumphs, their struggles. As the world evolved, so did we. From the presses to your screens, keeping you connected to the news that matters, wherever you are. We didn't stop at digital. We brought the action to life on your screens, covering the moments that unite us all. We're not just a source of information. We're your partner in exploration, booking your stay, paying for your meals, and even sending your event tickets straight to your phone. Reaching over 1 million people daily, we are a fully integrated system, working together to make your life easier. Whether it's news, events, or everyday information, we've brought it all together. We're committed to empowering the next generation. Through partnerships and innovation, we're delivering education to every corner of Namibia. We've become so much more. More than news, more than information. We're here to help you enjoy everything Namibia has to offer. NTV, so much more than just television.
So Dr. Sam Nujoma was born in Etunda in 1929 near Onganjera in northern Namibia. He was the son of Daniel Utoni Nujoma and Halvin Pingana Kondombolo, hardworking peasant farmers who instilled in him a strong sense of community and cultural pride. And I think this is really where it starts for a lot of people. You know, at home, charity begins at home. We learn our empathy. We learn our need to connect, our need to serve humanity from home. And some of the more powerful visuals I had seen was an image of Dr. Sam Nujoma seeing his mother, I think after 30 years, and she would have been 90 years old at that time. I'll fly to the picture, but you could see in her eyes, I mean, she had, yes, he was a man when he left, but nowhere near the kind of man he was when he came back. Everyone else was looking at him, seeing their hero, seeing their liberation struggle comrade, seeing a soldier, seeing a founding father. And she was seeing her little boy. And she had the right to, because ultimately the foundation that she had set back in Etunda had blossomed. the seeds that she had sown, this was the fruit of her labor, the legacy of Dr. Sam Shafiishuna Nujoma. Now, of course, growing up under South Africa's oppressive apartheid rule, he experienced firsthand the injustices that defined Black Namibian life. And despite limited formal education, his thirst for knowledge led him to self-educate and later attend night school in Windhoek while working as a railway clerk. You know, that's something that's worth noting. A lot of people feel that the only way that you can serve your nation is, if you've got the paperwork, if you're educated. But that's not what service is about. Service is about using what you have, using what is around you. And Sam Nujoma was a master at that. But not only did he use what he had around him and what he had within him, instilled in Atunda by his parents, he was learning. He was constantly on a journey of learning and understanding himself and understanding his nation and, of course, the struggle that he would later lead. Now, by the late 1950s, Nujoma had become a key figure. This was now in political activism. In 1959, he co-founded the Ovambo Land People's Organization. 1959 is very significant for me because that's when my father was born, and it shows you just the passage of time. Very interesting. So it later evolved, obviously, into the Southwest Africa People's Organization, SWAPO. That was in 1960. And as SWAPO's first president, Nujoma was dedicated to uniting Namibians beyond ethnic and regional divides in the fight for independence. And this was Dr. Sam Shafiishuna Nujoma speaking on unity.
We must remain vigilant and disciplined too. And we must have respect among ourselves. A nation without respect among its ranks and file will never be able to stand on its own feet, let alone fighting a fascist regime like that border and defeat it. Therefore, unity here is the sharp weapon. Unity is the sharp weapon. Next to a gun, even if you have a gun, you have no morale. Like those puppets, the boys have trained thousands of puppets, including mercenaries. But even they admit the fact that one SWAPO combatant is worth 100 South African soldiers. It is true, because he or she has the morale, and she knows that she is fighting for a right cause. And those ones puppets, they are bribed with the money. They are fighting for money. They are selling the country for money. How do you sell a country for money? A country is for the people. It's there to stay. In fact, Namibia doesn't belong to us alone. Namibia belongs to the African continent. It belongs to Zambia. It belongs to Angola. It belongs to Algeria. In as much as Zambia belongs to us.
So, as you could see, unity was very, very important. And I mean, I love when he said one Namibian soldier is equal to 100 of the other side. I even loved more when he said that, Namibia belongs to Zambia and Africa, just as Zambia belongs to us. And that was truly a message which defined Sam Nujoma's legacy. He was a man who was dedicated to his brethren, not just within Namibia, but outside Namibia. And it's because his journey was not easy. He had to leave, if you remember, after the old location assaults, he had to leave the country. Now, something very interesting happened there, because Dr. Sam Nujoma was given safe passage to Botswana by Hosea Kutako, Chief Hosea Kutako. And that is poetic in itself. I'm saying that because there's so much intentionality to Namibia if you look at it right now, because Dr. Sam Nujoma had to go through Hosea Kutako in order to leave the country. If you are coming to Namibia, you have to go through Hosea Kutako, just like Sam Nujoma did. And it's that intentionality, that texture, which allows us to mourn this man beyond just his flesh. And speaking of beyond just his flesh, something that was interesting to see was how many young children were crying on the streets, at the memorials. And I mean, you look at a guy like myself, I was born in 1990, so I was right there, ready for independence, ready first consignment of the Born Frees. I was right there, prepared to enjoy the freedom. But then my generation had children. We would call those millennials. Millennials, we had children. Gen Zs and Gen Alpha. And for us, the story, the narratives of Dr. Sam Nujoma have always just been right here. You know what I mean? Whether it was, the folks who have been, involved in the government itself, when you're talking about the children of ministers, or we're just talking about the history itself, how we were so fresh onto the scene. We had no choice but to learn about our heroes. And we were proud to have learned about our heroes, to have learned about the Tanganyika Brotherhood, which I'll get into right now. But these children, I kept asking myself, these children, why are they so distraught? And make no mistake, it's not to say that they don't have the right to. They absolutely do. But I had to investigate it. And then this is the answer I came up with. It's my opinion. You're free to have your own. But I felt like these children watched us revere Dr. Sam Shafiishuna Nujoma as an idea. He had stopped becoming a man, and he became an idea in our lifetime while he was alive. He wasn't in public a lot. He was when he needed to be. He wasn't in the public eye a lot, especially when these new Gen Alphas were being born. He really wasn't as visible. However, the idea of Sam Nujoma has always been palpable in Namibia. And we're not just talking about coming close to elections. We're talking about the roads. We're talking about the statues. We're talking about the books. We're talking about your parents are singing the song, "We will remember Sam Nujoma, we will remember." For these children, he was an idea, and they are watching us mourn an idea. Now, I'm not thinking of using the word idea in its minuscule form. I'm talking idea in its colossal form, idea in the thing that forms societies, idea in the thing that lives beyond flesh and blood. They saw us revere something they thought would never go. So they're watching us mourn Sam Nujoma, and they can't help but be drawn to tears because they're looking at this revered idea that has encompassed our entire reality, whether in a subtle manner or directly. He's just always been there. And for them, at least until they manage to conceptualize the idea for themselves, they're watching us mourn something so much bigger. And that's just what he was. From Botswana, Sam Nujoma went up. We'll show you the map. He went up to Africa, all the way to Tanzania. Now, Tanzania's name is Tanganyika, which means the beginning of nations, and hence the formation of the Tanganyika Brotherhood. You name them. Julius Nyerere, Sam Nujoma, Robert Gabriel Mugabe, Kenneth Kaunda of Zambia. You name them. You know those gentlemen who were at the forefront of our liberation movement. But something very interesting happened when he was in Tanzania. He had to change his name. And his name was actually Sam Mwakangale. We'll show you the passport just now. Sam Mwakangale was his name in Tanzania. Now, how did I find this out? As we were mourning the passing of Dr. Sam Shafiishuna Nujoma, as we just got the news, I was on social media, just looking at tribute posts all over the world. I mean, you should have seen it, and I'm sure you did. Every single Cuban embassy, understandably, his relationship with Fidel Castro, Namibia's relationship with Cuba, Cuba's relationship with Africa is absolutely inseparable. It's solid. It is untouchable with regards to how essential it was to our freedom. So I expected to see that from the Cubans, and it was wonderful to see. And I was moving around Africa, and everyone was mourning their Sam Nujoma. Everyone was mourning the lost founding father. But then I noticed something in Tanzania. I could see this name Sam trending, but it wasn't trending with Nujoma. It was trending with Mwakangale. And I love that because it really shows that we had Sam Nujoma, but they also had ownership of him. They also had ownership of the man. They also had ownership of the idea. And thus right now, as we mourn Sam Nujoma, they mourn Sam Mwakangale because he was many things to different people. Yet ultimately we're mourning the same man. We're mourning the same idea. And surely this is a message that should reverberate to all the powers that be, to all the leaders that are moving on in front of us and leading us into the future. This borderless influence, this borderless inspiration. When we say he's the last founding father in Africa, we are talking about nations that had to fight to have a father. Have you thought about that concept? We had to fight to have a father. In no other scenario in human life, you go from biology, you go to spiritual science, in no other scenario does a child have to fight for the right to have a father. We fought for these guys. They got us to fight for them. They got us to fight for ourselves, to fight for our nations. And their survival was never guaranteed. It was sacrifice all the way. I mean, you're leaving at 30, at the age of 30, you're going all the way to Tanganyika. Over here, Madame Kovambo is here with the children. That's real sacrifice. I'm not talking complaining and tweeting about waking up at 6 a.m. I'm not talking about complaining about going somewhere where you know you can come back home. I'm talking about 30 years. I'm talking about leaving everything you know. And you're not leaving in order to go and have a vacation. You're leaving in order to prepare yourself to fight. That is the true texture of the man. That is the true texture of a man. Yes, we don't like to talk about it. The conversation has become so layered. We don't want to say what's a man, what's a woman, and you know, gender politics and all of that. But this is what I understand about manhood. Manhood is responsibility. Manhood is choosing things to be responsible for and showing up every single time. And my goodness, did Sam Nujoma show up. And he showed up for his friends, even when he didn't expect it to. Think about his most famous speech at the United Nations. The man was there. He was ready to just deliver his remarks, and he spotted Tony Blair in the building and went, Tony Blair's here. You remember how that speech went? You remember the passion? He wasn't talking about Namibia. He was talking about Zimbabwe. He was talking about his brethren.
The Honorable Tony Blair is here. This summit must make the money available, especially the European Union, who have imposed the sanctions against Zimbabwe, must be lifted immediately. Otherwise, it's useless to come here and tell us all things that are not right.
For some people, the lasting image of Sam Nujoma was when he was talking about his neighbor. And that was the texture of the struggle. And I mourn, I grieve, not just Sam Nujoma, I do grieve at sometimes our separation across these borders. The audacity we have to forget Ubuntu Abantu, to forget that we were formed together and it was our collective strength that gave us our freedom, but it is also our collective strength that gave us our heroes. And thus our heroes were imbued with enough strength and energy to take it there. And he did. You've heard the Americans sing, "We shall overcome." Oh, we overcame. We absolutely did. So, what's the bottom line? The bottom line is, he was the last man standing in every essence of the word. The bottom line is, if we could mirror his life, Namibia and Africa would prosper immensely. The bottom line is, if you take care of your brethren will take care of you, your sister, whatever it is. If you take care of your family, if you take care of your village, if you remember that you came from Etunda, if you remember that you went through Hosea Kutako, if you remember that you made it all the way to Tanganyika just so you could come and start a nation, then you can be the last man standing. And for us right now, where we are, we can lament the fact that such a great life like Sam Nujoma's came through and will never get a second take. Good night.
It is not the intention of our organization to fight unnecessarily against the South African government. But much will depend on what South Africa will do. If she does accept our demand, and that is freedom and independence, then there would be no need of fighting.
Mr. President, the parade is forming. We wait you to address your reporter, your Kembe Commander Umaganuko reports.
Thank you very much, comrade.